More than 40 years have passed since Elvis Presley died, but that time has not decreased the interest in all things related to the king. Few people really knew Elvis personally, but Letitia Henley Kirk did. She was Elvis's private nurse for more than 9 years, and she's written a book called Taking Care of Elvis.
Elvis Presley's devoted nurse has just confirmed shocking news that fans have feared for decades. The king's final days were filled with unimaginable pain, hidden behind the glitz of his fame. She reveals how his health spiraled in a private struggle, far from the adoring crowds, with each step weighed down by unbearable exhaustion and loneliness. Let us follow her words as she unveils a secret that could change everything: Elvis's hidden health struggles and his nurse's untold story. In his final days, he lived a life far removed from the glamorous image his fans imagined. The man who once dominated stages and charmed the world with his charisma was now burdened by worsening health and private battles. In the last chapter of his life, he relied on a few close confidants, one of whom was Tish Henley Kirk, his devoted nurse. She saw past the legend to the real him, witnessing firsthand his struggles with fame and health. Her recent revelations have lifted the veil, showing a vulnerable human side, a man whose last days were marked by pain, solitude, and an overwhelming exhaustion that fame could not cure. But Tish held one final secret about his last hours, a truth that could change everything. Tish began working with him in 1972 as his personal nurse. Initially, her role seemed straightforward: oversee his health and ensure his well-being. But as time went on, Tish's role grew beyond that of a nurse. She became one of the few trusted friends he could lean on. Where others saw only the legend, Tish saw the real him, a man who struggled beneath the towering expectations of his fans and the relentless demands of fame. Her presence became a source of comfort in his increasingly turbulent life. What fans saw on stage was a shadow of the man he once was. Though he appeared strong and energetic to the public, the reality offstage was vastly different. Tish saw that his heart, which had once fueled his powerful performances, was now failing. His blood pressure was dangerously high, and his heart had become enlarged, conditions that posed severe risks. Every performance drained him, and the toll it took on his health was immense. Tish shared these insights years later, revealing just how much he suffered in silence. As his health continued to decline, Tish stayed by his side, watching as the man who had once electrified audiences struggled to complete even the simplest tasks. The relentless schedule, late-night performances, and constant travel wore him down. Yet, despite his deteriorating health, he felt bound to his commitments. Tish saw the emotional strain of always being on, and she recognized that he was physically and emotionally drained. She feared he wouldn't be able to keep going, but she knew he would try. He had an unbreakable dedication to his fans, even if it came at the cost of his health. Tish watched helplessly as his health reached its breaking point. She saw the signs of a life nearing its end: the worsening symptoms, the escalating dependence on medication, the ever-present exhaustion. She knew he couldn't keep this up, yet she also knew he would keep going until he had nothing left. The thought of losing him was heartbreaking, but she knew it was only a matter of time. His death was a tragedy felt worldwide, but for those who knew him intimately, it was the culmination of years of suffering and sacrifice. Tish understood the toll fame had taken on him, the years of silent battles, and the ultimate price he paid for his relentless dedication to his fans. She knew that he had given everything to his audience and had little left for himself. They have struggles, vulnerabilities, and moments of weakness. He was a man who sought to bring joy to millions, but paid a heartbreaking price for it. He was a legend, but he was also a man in desperate need of rest, support, and understanding. In his final days, Tish was there to provide that compassion, offering a rare glimpse into the deeply human side of an icon. The story of his last days is both tragic and profoundly human. It serves as a testament to his incredible impact on the world and a reminder of the cost that fame can exact. Tish's memories reveal the man behind the music, the fame, and the legend, a man whose life may have ended in heartbreak, but whose legacy will continue to inspire for generations to come. As time went on, Elvis's way of coping began to trap him instead. A nurse's heartfelt account of his final battle. Elvis, celebrated worldwide as the king of rock and roll, began using medications not just for comfort, but to manage the immense physical and emotional demands of fame. What started as a temporary measure spiraled into a tragic dependency, pulling him into a shadowed world he couldn't escape. Desperate for relief, he found himself ensnared by the very substances that were meant to sustain him. Tish Henley Kirk, his personal nurse, witnessed this descent firsthand. She saw the exuberant entertainer, the man who captivated millions with his voice and charisma, fade before her eyes. She watched as the medications that initially steadied him transformed into his undoing. Slowly, the vibrant him, who once brought audiences to their feet, began to slip away, his mind clouded, his legendary energy sapped. As his dependency grew, the changes in him became painfully clear. He would walk on stage, his posture slightly slumped, his gaze distant. Lyrics that once came effortlessly now slipped from his memory, and even familiar songs became tangled in confusion. Fans who attended his concerts, hoping for the spark and vitality they adored, were instead met with a man struggling to uphold the image of the king. Behind the glamorous persona was someone losing his grip on reality and falling deeper into the abyss of addiction. The toll was not only mental, but physical. His once powerful body, sculpted by years of energetic performances, began to betray him. The medications intended to fortify him left him weaker with each dose, creating a vicious cycle of need. Fatigue set in, and his famous energy drained as he relied more heavily on these pills. Tish stood by, helplessly watching the once great performer battle a private agony that his fans could scarcely imagine. The rumors about his growing drug problems swirled through the public for years. Many speculated that his struggles with addiction were slowly destroying him. Tish's experiences confirmed these rumors. She saw firsthand how the charismatic superstar became a shadow of himself, ensnared by pills that dulled his body, his mind, and even his spirit. Fame had turned from a dream into a prison. But perhaps the most heart-wrenching struggle he faced was not his addiction or physical decline, but his profound loneliness. Despite the adoration of millions, the king of rock and roll found himself increasingly isolated. Surrounded by fans, family, and friends, he was still alone, yearning for true companionship and understanding. Tish, one of the few who saw beyond his fame, knew this side of him intimately. She sensed the loneliness that haunted him, a yearning for real connection in a world that treated him like an icon rather than a person. In conversations with those around him, he often kept things light, avoiding deeper connections. Small talk dominated, a shield against the painful reality that he felt misunderstood and alone. In his private moments, the image of the king faded, revealing a man full of unspoken sorrows and longings, desperate for friendship and love. Yet his deteriorating health built a barrier that made meaningful relationships harder to sustain. Even his closest confidants began to pull away as his condition worsened. Those who should have offered support, family members, friends, and lovers, found it increasingly difficult to be around him. Tish saw how he missed the people he once loved deeply, like Priscilla and his daughter Lisa Marie, yet the growing grip of addiction and fame pushed them further away. As the substances took over, he became trapped in an unbreakable solitude. He was an icon, but he was also a man whose fame could not fill the void he felt within. Tish's recent confession, filled with regret, was a painful revelation to fans worldwide. It exposed a hidden battle against addiction, isolation, and the crushing pressure of living up to the image of him. Tish's recollection of his final days revealed a man desperately clinging to his identity, but succumbing to the overwhelming power of his dependency. Despite his strength, charm, and fame, nothing could save him in the end. His vitality, once so intense, began to fade until only a shadow remained. As his health declined, his appearance became a testament to his struggles. His once bright eyes grew weary, his energetic presence dulled by exhaustion. Simple tasks became insurmountable, and he relied on increasing doses of medication just to make it through the day. His weight fluctuated wildly, his energy plummeted, and he became almost unrecognizable as the king he once was. His performances, once explosive with life, grew tense and strained. Missing cues, forgetting lyrics, and even losing his balance became distressingly common. For the audiences who adored him, it was a heart-wrenching sight to see their beloved icons so frail. Each performance seemed to drain him, leaving him weaker, the magic that once electrified the stage slipping away with each song. Behind the scenes, his close circle felt torn. They wanted to help him, yet they also feared losing their connection to the king of rock and roll. Some prioritized preserving his image over confronting his addiction, and others were paralyzed by the fear of pushing him away. Tish often felt powerless, wanting to intervene but held back by his pride and resistance. The king didn't want to show weakness, believing he could still be the everyone cherished, yet deep down he knew he was losing control. Loneliness haunted him more intensely as his health deteriorated. Surrounded by people who barely understood his pain, he often found solace in Tish's quiet presence. Late at night, he would open up, sharing fears and regrets, reminiscing about the days when life felt simpler and fame had not yet consumed him. He missed the moments he could just be himself, spending time with his daughter, having genuine conversations unclouded by fame's expectations. But such moments were fleeting and grew even rarer as he succumbed to his struggle. The last days of his life were marked by despair and weariness. Tish described how he would still attempt to put on a brave face, but his suffering was evident. The substances had taken their toll, and his body was failing him. He was exhausted, tired of the unrelenting pressure, tired of the isolation, tired of a battle he knew he could no longer win. Still, he tried to be the king for his fans, but even the king couldn't escape the relentless spiral of addiction. On August 16, 1977, the world was stunned by the news that he was gone. Found unresponsive in his home, he was pronounced dead despite efforts to revive him. Fans around the globe were devastated, unable to fathom that their idol had vanished. Tish, who had been by his side through so much, was shattered. She had witnessed him fight, and ultimately she had seen him lose. A man whose joy and talent had touched millions, consumed by an inner darkness he could not overcome. His death serves as a tragic reminder of the high cost of fame and the dangers it can pose. Though he had everything, fortune, miles, and a legacy unmatched, none of it could protect him from the pressures and isolation that ultimately claimed his life. Tish's account revealed the truth behind his struggles, a heartbreaking reality for fans who had idolized the king of rock and roll. He remains an icon, his influence in music enduring across generations. But behind the legend was a man grappling with battles few ever saw. His story reminds us that even the brightest stars can fall, that fame is not always as it seems. Tish's confession sheds light on the price he paid to be the king, a price that ultimately took everything from him. And in the end, that is the most profound tragedy. He was not only a superstar, but a man who longed for love, connection, and a peace that fame alone could never provide. Those closest to Elvis watched as the life he built started to wear him down. The heartbreaking decline of Elvis Presley. For years, whispers surrounded his health, but they were easy to dismiss. Yet the signs of trouble were becoming impossible to ignore. In the eyes of those closest to him, including Tish, the transformation was devastating. He was slipping. The energy that had once fueled him, that had given him his fame and brought joy to millions, was now fading, leaving behind a shadow of the man he had once been. He was crumbling under a relentless cycle of demands, non-stop performances, endless tours, and the pressure to always be the king took their toll. Behind the dazzling lights and the adoring fans, a darker reality loomed. Years of pushing himself to the breaking point had drained his strength. The constant travel, the exhausting shows, and the grueling expectations had left him depleted. And then there were the pills, a supposed solution to his pain, a way to keep going when his body was screaming for rest. At first, they offered him relief, a temporary reprieve. But soon they became a lifeline, a numbing comfort that masked both physical and emotional wounds. This wasn't just the story of a rock star succumbing to fame. It was a human tragedy, a tale of how a man could be consumed by the very life he had built. His spirit, the fire that had once ignited his music and thrilled his audiences, was dwindling. He was no longer the indomitable king, but a man worn down by sickness, dependence, and the insatiable demands of stardom. The truth was heartbreaking. This time there would be no comeback. Those around him knew it, but it didn't make it any easier to watch. For years, people had believed in the legend of the rock and roll hero who could overcome anything. But the reality was painfully clear. He wasn't invincible. He was a man, flesh and blood, bound by the same limits that define us all. Fame, fortune, and a historic legacy couldn't protect him from exhaustion, from weakness, from the slow breakdown that comes from pushing too hard for too long. His rise had been meteoric, a boy from humble beginnings in Tupelo, Mississippi, whose voice had the power to mesmerize and whose charisma captivated the world. He was the epitome of the American dream, a young man with a golden voice, handsome and bold, who had changed the landscape of music forever. He brought rock and roll to the mainstream, breaking boundaries and bridging divides with a voice that united audiences across backgrounds and cultures. His performances were legendary, his dance moves shocking for the time, and his impact on music enduring. He was unstoppable, or so it seemed, but with his fame came a constant, unforgiving pressure. The world demanded more of him, and he, dedicated, ever the performer, tried to deliver. Managers, record companies, and adoring fans clamored for more music, more concerts, more of his magic. And he gave them everything he had, to the point of breaking. Behind the charming smile and iconic moves, he was exhausted, worn thin by the late nights, relentless travel, and unending need to be the image the world adored. Tish and those closest to him saw the toll it was taking, the cracks slowly beginning to show beneath his sparkling image. In those quiet, private moments, the pain was evident. There were times, Tish recalls, when he would sit in silence, his once lively gaze heavy and lost in thought. She saw him struggle to breathe after performances, his face drawn, the sparkle in his eyes dimmed. The man who had once been a vibrant, unstoppable force on stage was now a shadow of himself, running on empty but still trying to live up to the expectations of an adoring world. The medication started as a temporary measure, a way to cope with the aches and fatigue, but they quickly became a crutch, numbing not only his physical pain, but also the mental and emotional strain of being him. The king of rock and roll couldn't afford to be weak, couldn't show vulnerability. And so he hid behind the pills, masking his struggles from the world, but paying a heavy price in return. Tish remembers those moments of fragility that revealed the depth of his suffering. She saw the toll that fame had taken, and she felt the heartbreak of knowing that, despite his efforts, there would be no saving him from this fate. He had given everything he had to his fans, to the world. But the world had taken more than he could give, and it was finally too much. The story of his decline is more than a cautionary tale. It is a powerful glimpse into the reality of fame. It shows how even the brightest lights, the most revered figures, are still human. His story reminds us that no matter how high one rises, even the greatest legends can fall. His light may have faded, but his legacy endures. A legacy of music, charisma, and a spirit that, even in its final moments, left an indelible mark on the world. Elvis gave everything to his fans, but who truly gave back to him in his darkest days? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe.